To the great lay contemplative Catherine of Siena, whose extremely mystical and supernatural relationship with God, she would receive messages from the Lord while in ecstasy, whom she would dictate to her secretary. Yes, she did have some money. She did not grow up in a poor household. I'm not going to say she was rich, but she did have some money and did have a secretary. But the interesting thing is that she received these messages in ecstasy. Most people caught in ecstasy can't do anything except be absorbed into the love of God. But St. Catherine of Siena would receive messages, and because of that, she is regarded as one of 4 female doctors of the church, and she was a lay woman. St. Catherine of Siena was a lay woman. She was a part of a Third Order Dominican group that she joined, but aside from that, she was a lay person. And she said in one of her writings that it takes time to learn how to pray. You have to spend time in prayer to learn how to pray. My parents had 6 children, and my mother had another son before she married my father. So my mother had 7 children. She was an Air Force wife, and she was the cook, she was the maid, she was the chauffeur, she was the household financier. My mother did it all. And oftentimes, poor Thomas was taken to a private school because my parents were very concerned about me, rightly so. I had a very troubled childhood. And oftentimes, my mother would take me to a private school off the Air Force base because we basically lived on Air Force bases. And aside from all the other responsibilities that my mother did every day, she oftentimes had to go pick me up from the private school off of the base. And that was including all the other things she had to do for the other kids and my father. My father had terrible issues. He was a narcissist. My mother was a good mother, and she took care of her children and her husband. And oftentimes I spent lots of time waiting. I spent a lot of time waiting, and there wasn't a thing I could do about it. So now I'm very good at waiting. I am very excellent at waiting. I can wait for very long periods of time, and I can spend very long periods of time waiting upon the Lord. Why am I bringing this up? Many of you have extremely short attention spans. We all know what that means. We all know what it means because we know that those involved in television and entertainment try to calculate your and mine attention span. How long can we hold an audience? The more we can hold the audience, the more we can ask our advertisers to pay us. So we all know what attention span is. But the attention span is getting shorter and shorter. In my day, there were basically 4 channels on the TV set. 4 channels on the TV set. There was the public broadcasting system where we could watch Sesame Street and things like that. And then there was the ABC, NBC, and CBS. And that's what was on the television set. And we would watch, and we would have to sit through commercials because everything had a commercial on it. And we would watch one channel at a time, but that's not the situation that the person is involved in today, where you can not only do you have cable, or you have many channels to choose from, but you also have your computer and your telephone, and you can live stream material right off of the internet, and you have millions and billions of choices on the so-called information superhighway, and so you are very easily distracted. You are very easily led away. You have a very extremely short attention span, and that doesn't work very well in contemplative prayer. Doesn't work very well in trying to learn how to pray, because it takes time, real time. It doesn't take 15 seconds. We have commercials that are 15 seconds. We have commercials on YouTube that are 15 seconds. And it doesn't take 30 seconds. We have commercials that are 30 seconds. On YouTube, you have to watch over 30 seconds for it to pay off. And I actually had someone who was a professional broadcaster tell me, do not make a YouTube video over 12 minutes. 12 minutes. But it takes longer to learn how to pray than 12 minutes. So most of us, our minds are jumping around looking for something to stimulate us. We're constantly looking for something to stimulate us. And I heard of a story recently that came from Pilar, that she had a friend, and that friend needed to be distracted all the time. And when that friend went to the mountains where it was quiet, it drove the poor dude nuts to be in the quiet in the mountains. He had to have constant noise going on. He was addicted to distractions and noise, and his mind had to be flooded with constant noise all the time. We are indeed living in a different place than the 1970s, when we only had 4 channels, And you may laugh, and we used to pick that stuff up. We used to pick it directly out of the air. You've seen people talk about rabbit ears. You put this little antenna on top of your TV. They still got them, but a lot of people are not familiar anymore. And people would put antennas on top of their roofs. But in any case, since the 70s, there has been such an increase in the media. But you and I have become more and more impatient, more and more incapable of waiting. And we become very angry if someone makes us wait. And when someone says, you have a very short attention span, you don't have any patience, you have no ability to stick it out, and you get antsy when there isn't some kind of distraction. So you pop your earbuds in and you play something from your phone to keep a constant amount of noise in your head. What a mess. And then some dude comes along and says it takes time to learn how to pray. We have a lot of people come onto this stream and they quickly go off of the stream because they're so highly distracted. Maybe they feel drawn to the idea, hey, contemplative prayer, I've heard about that. Let me go see what that is. Let me go see what contemplative prayer is. And then immediately, after spending about 30 seconds, they click off. Let me go see what else is on. When I talk, I get more people to stay here for a little while, like what I'm doing right now. But when I switch to prayer and I say, now we're going to talk to the Lord, everyone clicks off. They have no attention span, no patience, no ability to wait upon the Lord. Up above, I put a text. Those that wait upon the Lord will take up eagle's wings. Those that wait upon the Lord will take up eagle's wing. Now, what is this all about? Well, you have to practice waiting. And the only way to practice waiting is to wait. And the only way you will grow better at it is to sit and wait. You're not going to grow better at it by getting distracted. When I started this channel and I began to teach people 6 years ago, Yeah, 6 years ago. I have a channel on YouTube, and there's actually still a group on Facebook, although I don't go to Facebook anymore. And on YouTube, 6 years ago, we began a group, and I began trying to teach people how to pray. And they had very short attention spans in prayer. And so I said, let's try it for 5 minutes. What was your experience? What happened to you? Let's reflect on it. And then after a while, I knew that people needed to spend more time in prayer if they were going to open up the treasures of contemplative prayer. So we ended up extending the live streams to a whole hour. In the first part, we would pray some prayers in the morning prayers or the evening prayers, and then we would sit and wait upon the Lord. We would sit and wait upon the Lord. And over the last 6 years, only the few, the proud and the Marines, are still here learning how to pray, because most people do not have any form of the virtue of patience. No virtue of patience. But it says in James, count it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. And let patience have its perfect result, so that you are perfect and lacking in nothing. You have to have patience, and you need to learn how to wait upon the Lord. No shortcuts. Stop thinking that you can tell God how to do it. I'll tell you this, you will not draw closer to the Lord if you do not learn how to wait upon Him. That's all. God isn't going to change His modus operandi for you. He has His way, but you have your way. Who do you think's way is better? Yours or God's? You probably don't care. You probably think that if it's not your way, then God can take the highway. But God ain't changing for you. God ain't going to do it. He's not going to bow down to your 15-second attention span. You're going to have to change. You reflect on that this morning. You have to change. Stop telling God He's got to change for you. It ain't going to work out very well.